Great. And with that, I would like to invite you to tell us all about the experience of mWater.
Thank you so much, Karen. I would like to say thank you for bringing us together to share our experience, and that's really great to collaborate and share what we are doing here and how this can support, and also hear from the participants about their experiences. So thanks for providing this platform. So let's start with the introduction. I'm Sabir Hussain and I work with WaterAid UK. I'm based in Pakistan. I work with accountability and effectiveness team in which is based in the UK. So my main role is to support our country programs, particularly in using this platform mWater, which we will be talking today, and then how we are using. So this also you are going to hear from us today. I'm going to hand over to our other presenters for the introduction. Thank you.
Shall I go first? Sure, I'm Petri, I'm product manager for mWater. Since I know I'll be talking soon. And though I used to be with WaterAid UK for 5 years before. So yeah, great to catch you all again. And we work together quite a bit.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Ellen, please.
Yeah, okay. Just closing up with WaterAid UK. So I'm Ellen Greggio. I work in the program support unit on the quality program team on monitoring and mapping. So passing on to Tim now.
Excellent. Good evening, everyone from Melbourne. My name's Tim Davis. I'm with WaterAid Australia as the regional technical lead for monitoring. So I work a lot with governments in the Asia Pacific region, especially Papua New Guinea, Timor-Leste, and Cambodia.
Thank you so much. So let's start with our presentation. So today we are going to talk about what mWater is and how this is supporting our sector, what are its features. Petri would be taking lead on this session, and then we will be talking through about WaterAid's journey, how we explored mWater and how we connected, and then how we are working and using mWater that supporting our business while working with different country programs and managing our business as usual and our experience in our journey. Then we have Tim Davis is going to talk about WaterAid Australia and PNG's experience, and will give us some live demonstration and sharing some excellent and interesting stories. And then there will be an opportunity where we can have some question and feedback in the comments. Starting with our first session, let's go to Petri. Petri, over to you.
Sure, thank you, Sabir, and hi, everybody. Yeah, I'll talk for a few slides on the big picture of what is mWater and why we're here. So next slide, please. Great, so the story of mWater briefly. Regarding building a free and sustainable data management platform for all of WASH. So free to use by everybody, and sustainable meaning sort of it shouldn't be on individual users or organizations to make sure that the technology layer runs. So I'll explain a bit more about that, but just a bit about the origins of mWater. So it all started back in 2012, before my day, in a NASA hackathon as a solution for water quality tracking, so a mobile app solution. They have this team at the working on the space station that looks at how to use that technology on Earth. But from there, it quickly grew to a general survey creation tool and then infrastructure management, and it's been growing organically since. And the sort of frustration, the pain point that perhaps mWater has mainly been going after is this kind of frustration with data collection that ends up in silos and not really useful over time. So whether that's data on paper, and there's a whole lot of water and wash related data still being collected on paper, and certainly was back then, or even if it's digitized, well, if it's on walled off servers that only exist for a limited scope, or a database that's on somebody's computer, it can be quite useful for the duration of a project or a given piece of work. But really what we want, of course, is this long-term sustained service level. So it can often be the case that there's a big disjunct between the data being collected is useful for a while, but what happens when the project is over or a person changes location and so on. So the idea was to address this pain point on the one hand, and then more aspirationally rising to meet that need that was more and more clear around sustainability to address the SDGs. So people realizing it's not just about whether a water point, for example, was functional at a given moment, but how do we enable this kind of tracking over time. So those kind of big considerations have gone into the design of mWater. And what we've been building is this free platform that's really flexible and exists for the whole sector to benefit from, where users themselves own the data, but shouldn't have to worry about, is the server running? Can I do one piece of data collection, or can I do 1 million? And try to make it easy to collect data and then manage it, validate it, analyze it, act on it, and then share it with the stakeholders that you want to share it with. So that was the origin and the intent. And now in 2020, we've spread to pretty much a large chunk of the world, with just reaching 100,000 signed up users this Monday from 180 countries overall. And just to give you a sense of what that all means, well, the map on the right there shows you kind of our clusters of users, India and Indonesia being the single individual biggest countries using mWater, but a lot of use across the world, across Africa, growing use in Latin America, Asia Pacific. And it really goes from being able to track data on individual water points all the way to large water systems comprising hundreds or thousands of assets, as well as things like communities, schools, healthcare facilities, hand washing facilities, even entire cities. And who use it and who can make use of it. It really spans from local organizations to large international organizations such as WaterAid, as we'll see, and in our dream case, national governments as well. So have this sort of data layer working fairly frictionlessly at even a national level. Next slide, please. So that's all well and good about the big picture. I'll just give you couple of bullet points on what does it actually mean. So the key features are is this mobile app on Android, on iOS, on the web. That's multilingual, that's offline friendly, easy to use, where the data entry can happen by and large. So field staff, and there are plenty of solutions like this that exist. And then there's the website side we call the portal, where all the sort of more complicated, more advanced stuff happens, where anybody can design any kind of survey. And then the key point, I suppose, one key differentiator there is the next point, where we make it really easy to monitor infrastructure in the world over time, because we have this separate concept of sites. So imagine water points, communities, schools, and so on. You can map that, make that visible to the world if you want, and then you can link your surveys to that. Now, if you're visiting the same site many times over time, you can keep linking surveys to the same site. And then on the analysis side, because of the relational database, you can then visualize, you can then analyze, okay, well, given this school, how has the service level been there over time? And that system kind of does the linking for you, and the analysis should be a lot easier. You can track standardized data such as SDGs with indicators, or organizational indicators, depending on your use case. You can review and validate data as it comes in. So one of the big benefits of digital data management is that in theory, you get more validated, cleaner, more accurate data. You get your GPS location from your smartphone, and much more. And then to kind of close the loop, to be able to manage data better and make better decisions in the world, there's also the side to the portal where you can build interactive maps and reports, dashboards, and so on that managers can look at, that various stakeholders can look at. That's all up to you as a user to make the determination of. And then finally, I want to mention that we want to be part of an open ecosystem of these kinds of solutions and how this stuff works. So it's always possible to import data from existing systems or existing databases or paper into the system. And then you can always, of course, export it out if you want to use something else, or if you have more advanced analysis tools that you want to plug into. So it's really not about walling off data into a certain network only. If I've still got a few minutes, I was going to just share my screen here and give a few demonstrations live, just very quickly to give you a flavor of what it actually means. So if you can see the screen, the app is here, just intending to keep it very basic. Here is where you can create these infrastructure sites, start any kind of survey. Portal, you can go there at any point, sign up and use it for free. That's just portal.mwater.co. And a couple of examples briefly. Here, for example, is a live interactive map of all the publicly visible water points in mWater, which there's basic properties of these points are captured. So where are they in the world? Maybe photos, descriptions, standardized things. If we jump to the next level, not just water points, here's a nice example of a water system with all the pipe assets and household links and water points and system components that can be tracked. And you can keep this asset information, of course, visible only to a water utility or the relevant stakeholders. I realize I'm dashing through this, but even zooming out, going all the way to national level stuff, for example, in Haiti, mWater is used in a large way to make action plans and really look at the high level access summary and decide on where to intervene. In Tanzania, we've got data analysis in the Mara Basin aligned with the WEEP model on water resource management and so on. And another large case to just briefly throw out there is water point asset management and monitoring in Malawi, for example, where the Climate Justice Fund has mapped basically all of the water points in Malawi and is tracking the functionality and is setting up the flow of getting that data in and updated. So I guess that's all to say that there's a lot of flexibility in how you can use mWater, and there's no limit to the scale really on how you can use that. So it's this general tool really for the sector. And I guess I can show the next slide, but then I'm jumping back into the slides in general. My last slide was just preempting some questions that we often hear. Well, how does it all work? It sounds all nice in practice. How can you provide a platform like this? And this should bridge us over to WaterAid as well. So on the one hand, keep the organization nimble. So making use of all the fancy tech available these days on having scalable cloud server architecture and a lean, high-skilled team. So means that the unit cost of having another survey, a site, 1 million surveys, 1 million sites is really low. We don't need to maintain many things, and we get all the benefits of data security from the top end and so on. And then we aim for this kind of virtuous cycle where relevant features are added constantly to the platform in conjunction with WASH experts, such as people from WaterAid, major organizations like that. And that drives this adoption now at 100,000 users. The more it's adopted, well, the more fluency there is in data and the more attractive the platform can be for the bigger sector actors to kind of sustain it and support it as this sector-wide option to use. And then whilst we don't, as mWater, interact with the vast bulk of our users in basically any way, people pick up the platform and use it. It's really that 1% of leading users, these larger organizations such as WaterAid, who work with us in partnership, maybe with trainings and in particular with this kind of research and development investment to keep relevant features coming to fruition all the time, and that then, of course, keeps it relevant for the people who want to use it. And that's a big part of my role is whenever we develop new features, we really add it to the free set that is available for everybody to use. And yeah, that's my quick nutshell overview of mWater, and also links it quite a bit to WaterAid, who have been in partnership with us for a long time, and a lot of the features you see in the platform come from advice and come from partnership with WaterAid.
Am I allowed to ask burning questions?
Yeah, fine by me.
I won't get like too sidetracked or anything, but so what I'm seeing is that this is really a functionality for access, water access and infrastructure more than anything else, because I come from a water quality perspective, water chemistry, monitoring, understanding long-term, and I see a platform like this also being more complicated because you have to validate your data in a different way, but also having the implication of being able to access global database and track what's happening with different catchments. For example, I'm just wondering if there's any kind of interface with the water quality side as well, and if so, how are you verifying data is sound? Was the biggest.
Sure. I mean, well, John, our COO, and we're founded by husband and wife, Annie, who's our CEO, and John, who was working at NASA. He's all about water quality, and that's the very core of it. So mWater does. He innovated this water quality kit that mWater also provides, but I suppose what we do as a small sub 15 person group, we don't go out there and we don't validate the data for you. We provide the tools, and it's really up to the practitioners and other people to check that. So we do have a standard water quality form. We do have that kit you can use, but and we do have water quality indicators. There's also water quality stuff that WaterAid has helped build in the platform. But in terms of validating that data, well, Ellen would be the perfect person to talk a bit about how that best works in mWater with WHO guidelines being available to kind of alert if something is not matching. But really, we kind of hand over a bit of the responsibility to you. We give the tools you can do, but we don't go through the data and analyze whether there's an error somewhere or you're in breach of water quality limits somewhere as mWater. No.
So my PhD research is on the it's co-creation of knowledge, working with the scientific community and community partners, and I think addressing water is specifically focused right now in the Mekong region, and specifically understanding what water quality is doing, how to correctly monitor things like flow, these sorts of things. And you say that there's actually a kit. I'm just wondering from my perspective how I could bring this into my work, because I'm really excited about it.
Yeah. So you could either use the mWater Cook Kit or any data that you're already collecting, and you can look at the existing survey, the kind of out-of-the-box water quality survey and the parameters that go into that. And if you're doing more advanced work, well, the survey design I was briefly mentioning is really open. Like you can go there right now and create the questions and design the survey that matches the data that you want to track. And you can then link those to the water points, for example. And yeah.
My final question, I promise it's the final one for now, is about intellectual property and how data is protected. What kind of IP clauses do you have in place for people?
Well, we have a privacy policy. It's fundamentally it's all yours. It's not mWater's. I don't get to see your data just because you collected in mWater. That's fundamental to how we work. We have acted on GDPR compliance and so on. So I'd refer a little bit to the privacy policy, but yeah, it's not about us garnering that data and doing something with that data. It's really providing just that layer, and the data is owned by who collects it. Fundamentally, is in a nutshell.
And the users are able to restrict access to who gets.
Absolutely. By default, it's all private. Some of the site stuff I showed, we encourage users to make the basic properties of things like where is the water point at and what type is it. We encourage people to make that publicly viewable, though it's not mandatory by any means. But all the survey stuff, all that is private by default, everything, and it's always an action from you as a user to make it visible to a broader audience, and you get to choose. You get to choose that.
Thank you for answering my questions.
No worries. It's all good. Thank you. Okay. Handing over back to WaterAid. Is it from your side?
Yeah, thanks. Maybe I can.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks, Sabir.
Thank you so much, Petri, for this wonderful and very exciting presentation and overview and the bigger picture. So I think you are the presenter, Petri. I can't move slides. Yeah, you can go to the next slide. Thanks, Petri. Yeah, so how we came into partnership with mWater. So WaterAid works with the communities and through implementing partners, and we work in a different country programs in different regions, starting from Africa to Asia region, and we have country offices there. So through country offices, we work with implementing partners and support communities. So to reach the communities and making the information flow consistent, and also looking at our needs based on our reporting and accountability, and also understanding more about the community, their needs and technology type regarding water sanitation and hygiene, and how we can support better to them and manage our resources and support them for the long lasting services of wash. We were struggling with some of the issues of data collection, making our reports and data collection practices and standard variables for data collection. And we had different practices, different knowledge based on in the staff in the country program. So we learned from the community in the country program, and then by this experience, we came to the decision that we need a single platform where we can make a consistent database for recording the projects and the interventions, and we needed a tool that support our large data collection activities, and also that can reduce the time and efforts and the financial resources which goes in data collection, for example going from paper based to the online technology, and then also generating different knowledge and data pieces from different contexts and different country programs. That definitely that supported by mWater, as we see the we heard from Petri. So there were different issues and different challenges which we were facing by working on different platforms. There were no single platform, and then we had to reach to have this one single platform. So Petri, can you go to the next slide? Yeah. So as mentioned by Petri, and looking at mWater, that it supports offline data collection and then it generates immediate results. We can also map where the communities are, where we are support. We should support our provide our support, and where we should manage our services, and how we can retain and sustain our interventions, and also how we can produce some great and quick analysis. You can click next, Petri. Yeah. So this is all supported by mWater. So these were the some of the direct things which also came as added an attraction and a platform that could support our business as usual. Can go to next slide, Petri. And then managing the users, and for example, who is collecting data, the way looking our organizational structure from different region to country programs, and also complying with the GDPR policy, like who is collecting data on behalf of WaterAid, where and how we are complying with these protocols. So we needed this platform, and that helps in better mapping out the users, and also looking at the data collection that is being collected by different country program and their partners under the umbrella of WaterAid. So here you can see in the image on right side corner, you can see this is the structure, the way organization functions, and our governance structure works. And then underneath you can see the responses coming by each single survey that is submitted by anyone in at any country program or any part of the world where we are operating. And then we are managing all of the users and the data that is being collected under on behalf of WaterAid. Please go to next slide, Petri. So our history starts like from 2013. We started looking at the single platform. We reviewed more than 40 different vendors, and finally we ended with mWater, and which could provide us a single platform, and that can help us in managing our challenges and also better analyzing the results, and then managing our business. And then we started piloting in 2014, and then go on the way Petri said, that we supported each other with our knowledge, experience, and also we mutually agreed on how better we can customize the functions, different functions of mWater that can support not only mWater but also across different organizations in the world, supporting communities through providing voice services. And then from 2015 onwards, we started some more developments like dashboards, offline data collection, and creating more tasks. You could have seen that those different things in Petri's presentation, but here you can see an image of where we have funded a water point, where it exists, what is current state, and what technology we have used, how is its operational and maintenance mechanism work, for example, for over the period of time monitoring. Can you go to the next slide, Petri? And then from going onward, and then we tested trial in different country programs, and then we came with more development like mapping of the water point mapper, or having more built-in indicators owning to the SDG indicator and the JMP practices, and then improving our analysis and that support our decision making and the planning. And going forward, we worked on water quality data and the different consoles, a single platform to give you analysis and the data which you can support your to track the projects, to monitor the projects, and definitely supporting country program and the community at a single platform, at single view through development of the consoles. So this is helping a lot in better management of our data and project inventories. It is reducing our work of data collection, and it has improved our quality of information and avoiding duplications, things like that. Next, please. So how we are using, if I go more deeper, and how it is supporting in our different functions, for example, next slide, Petri. So we record all interventions and the community and institutions we work with through different projects. So we call it a project inventory. So we record all, every intervention from the start of supporting an institution or a community, and we map those with creating sites, and we have developed a console where the data comes at our portal and we start managing that. So inventory is like it's a basic core function about community, school, and healthcare facilities that we are supporting, and then a console that is developed that helps us in better tracking our different information and interventions. Like if we entered in a community and then where we have installed boreholes, for example, and then we again went to an institution or healthcare facility, then everything mapped, and the story becomes like you can see an image how we are supporting them and where they are. Next, please. And the question you did about water quality, yes. So we are very much keen and very much aware of the importance of water quality, and also keep monitoring the basic and important and critical parameters. And we have the tool where we collect data for the water quality test for all the water interventions supported by WaterAid, and then we have WaterAid's global water quality policy, and then we are making sure through this tool and data collection that how country programs and our partners are complying with the policy of water quality by providing water services to the communities. So we record and we analyze and we generate this type of information that helps in better supporting our interventions and making sure that the water which we are providing is safe and there is no any contamination. And if there are, then how we can support better and support the country program in for the long-lasting water interventions. Next, please. And then as a part of our sustainability framework and how we are measuring sustainability at WaterAid, so we have this inbuilt exercise which is called post-implementation monitoring survey. And that means this is a comprehensive survey that says the sustainability of all WASH interventions, to identify learning and to also inform programs and projects by highlighting the red flags. And then there are some standard PIMS indicators and the tools that are developed in at mWater, which we duplicate and tailor as per the different contexts of the country programs, and we use them. We also translate them in different languages to help better in country program and the communities to collect the data. So in PIMS, we go to measure even for last 10 years of our interventions, which are supported in different locations. So we collect sample through project inventories, and then we do this exercise. So this is a complete internal exercise, which is more focused on measuring sustainability and highlighting the red flags that keep supporting our programming and going forward. Thank you. Next, please. So if you see this image, like how we can this mWater support in our project implementation, starting from project baseline, you go there and create sites and map the community institutions we are supporting. And then when at the time of project implementation, we record inventory for all of the locations and the interventions together with water quality, and we can use that information throughout the project monitoring of a project life, and then at the end, during end line, we can use that information again to update the results and attributes our interventions towards the long-lasting services which we provide to community and institutions. So this helps a lot. And then there are some standard surveys which are created, and also the tools available in mWater that helps you to map everything you can see in this story, like the project cycle. Yeah, next please. And then we produce different kind of analysis, like you can use text, you can use percentages and number, you can come with graphs and bar charts and pie charts. Next please. And you can also map your target output targets against the progress against the output target. For example, in this picture, you can see how the way we are supporting and looking at our project level targets, where we are tracking wash access user for sanitation and hygiene. As we have adopted, we have made our data collection and support and looking at directly SDG indicators and those definition the parameters. And next please. So these dashboard and this type of analysis is directly accessible to partners when they collect data, and so this is also informing them to see how their project is performing, whether this is on track, where they need to readjust their planning, things like that. So this is accessible from us to our partner level, which is on ground and working with the community directly. Next, please. So here you can see the users history, how we started our journey from 2015 up to 2021. So we are building capacity, building some training resources for partners and the country program staff. We run our trainings and sessions, and also have platforms where different country programs share their own experiences. Next, please. As I mentioned that it supports different languages, so you can create surveys and also you can translate those in local languages to help better your field staff who is on the ground and that can collect data on behalf of you. Over to Ellen. She's going to talk about how our work is supporting the sector as a whole and supporting our system and strengthening work. Ellen, over to you. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Sabir. So yes, we heard how we used mWater in WaterAid to track our projects and support some of the decision making in our work. But I would like now to just share some slides around how we actually use, in WaterAid, we use mWater to support sector monitoring processes, and in particularly addressing some of the data gaps that we see in the sector. Can you just shift the next slide, please? So Overall, WaterAid has a key component to the work around system strengthening and sector strengthening, where it really tries to support local government, national governments, utilities in improving the data use for performance monitoring and to inform planning and budgeting processes, so that by knowing where services gaps are, we can address these through better planning and budgeting. So what are these data gaps that can have been identified within the WASH sector for operation planning and budgeting? So firstly is real-time up-to-date information on daily operation and management of the WASH services. So knowing the situation with some of the water infrastructure, for example. What is the current status of this? How does it need to be managed by utilities and by local government? There is a need for data that tracks the performance of services. As Petri was saying at the beginning, there is you can track longitudinally the performance and the service that is being provided by those assets or that WASH services. And then you need data to actually predict needs for maintenance, for replacements, and to inform, therefore, the funding that is needed. So these are kind of the areas where we really see a great value of using mWater to support some of these decision-making processes. You go to the next slide, please. And that might be a bit interactive. So 1 second. Yeah, thanks. So with this, then we're looking at how mWater also can support decision-making at different levels. So, and this is really helpful in mWater, where you can really track information from a low level to a very high level. So for example, you can have information about coverage at a high level. You want to look at the country, what is the status on those specific districts. But if you go down a next service levels, next step, you will have information about details, information about maybe a district in particular, what are the service level in that district. So looking at functionality, looking at continuity of supply, looking at water quality, for example, Karen, as we were discussing. But then maybe you need decision levels at a more detailed level, hence you can actually analyze data at a lower level. So the next, you can have the single infrastructure information. So you can look at the specific service and look at what service is that providing, what is the infrastructure details, what is the age of the infrastructure, how can you use that information then for planning and budgeting. So you can really go from a very detailed information about the assets to the services and to a broader kind of decision-making at national level. So this is really one of the great values that we see by using mWater in supporting this. And next step, slide, sorry. As Petri was mentioning as well, that there are some standard indicators that are already embedded on mWater, which are very useful within the WASH sector, particularly obviously tracking SDG 6, so for water sanitation and hygiene. We embed this in many of our surveys, and we promote using these standard surveys when working with local governments, so that there is a consistent way of analyzing progress across different countries. So tracking SDGs, but next is also like using WASH-fit indicators. This is for WASH and health center facilities. There are standard indicators already built on mWater, which then across different countries can be used, and then that can be used for also global monitoring and comparison between countries. So this is kind of some of the aspects that we see really beneficial when working with local government, but also national government on using some of these functions on mWater. But then you can go into more detail level of some of the other functionalities of mWater that are very useful, which is next slide. So while we were talking before, we were talking about like mapping and having information about the specific systems. And recently, mWater has developed, and Petri already mentioned this, a more detailed way of mapping water supply and water services infrastructure. In particular, when you have a large water supply network, in the past, the WASH sector was very limited to just monitoring maybe just tap stands or water points, single water points, but actually wasn't really having a consistent way or a systematic way to map all the assets inventory. This maybe is done by some utilities, but there is a need for this also in rural local governments to inform their planning and budgeting. So by using this new functionality on mWater, we can help local government mapping out all the different services and infrastructures of those services, looking at the type of structures, so going from sources to tanks, pumps, pipes, tap stands, looking at the type of these, the age and the status, So all of this can then be used to forecast operation and replacement and really help with costing of these as well. There's also a functionality which can link this to billing system, which still, I mean, it's been explored by other organizations, and we're looking into that as well in some countries. So all of these different functionalities can really be applied with different service providers. So the ones I was talking about before are maybe more national level. We use some of these with more utilities where we're supporting utilities, maybe in rural, in peri-rural areas where there isn't a strong utility which has resources to do this type of services, this type of analysis. Or maybe in small towns, which are maybe in, within a rural district, who again don't have huge budgets and huge capacities to use maybe more advanced systems. So mWater is really providing a good fit for these smaller towns as well to manage better their infrastructure and to move away from maybe paper-based surveys or database that they have to actually inform their planning and budgeting with this online asset inventory. So I'll just explain briefly then, next slide, an example from one of the application of this, where we've been supporting a national monitoring system process development in Myanmar on rural water supply, so focusing on rural water here. Myanmar is a very dispersed country, has very different type of water services, low service levels. So we see a lot of infrastructure being built, but very little monitoring of the service that that infrastructure is providing, particularly water quality. You can see here we have some pictures of actually microbiological tests that we were doing as part of this. Water quality is a big challenge in the country, but also continuity of supply, seasonality issues. So the government had a big database already of all the infrastructure that was present in the country, but was lacking that regular tracking of the services that's been provided. Hence, it had issues to report against SDGs monitoring as well. So what we've been doing is actually firstly assessing what the current process and monitoring gaps and data gaps were. Sorry, there's an overlap between the picture and the text here. And then what we've been working in, and this is both WaterAid and WaterAid Australia that was supporting this, we've been really doing an assessment first, understand where the gaps are. Then what we've been doing is introducing some best practice indicators, particularly in line with SDGs. So to try and demonstrate that by adding some additional, tracking additional indicators, you're able to actually track progress towards SDGs. And then we use mWater to demonstrate how you can move away from a paper-based or Excel file stored data set that it gets outdated very quickly to a live database which has up-to-date information about both the infrastructure, but also the service levels. So we've run 3 pilots in 3 different districts, and through that, together with the government, so we trained over 250 staff of the government on doing this, and we've been learning and adapting. So the survey, we started with one, and then it actually had to evolve so that we learned together with the government what was needed from their side and what were the processes as well. And then we customized this into a kind of a local management information system that looks at data both from, as I was saying before, from a national perspective down to the single infrastructure. And now we're in the process of working with the government to kind of institutionalize this in terms of developing a monitoring framework which has very clear roles and responsibility going forward. So that is completely in place with all of the processes. So can you just move to the next slide, please? In terms of indicators, as I said, we tried to improve what the government was actually currently already doing and actually helped map all the assets, as we were saying before, looking at all the different components of a big water system, for example, because that can be used to help with planning and budgeting. We identified some specific KPIs, particularly on service levels, including water quality that was needed by the local national government and local government, and in particularly to track progress towards SDG 6.1. So we worked very collaboratively with the government, the different departments, to try and understand also how to visualize the data in a way that made sense for them. So it's not just about putting the data into some graphs, but really trying to understand how the decision making can be done with that information. So really working with them to identify, is a map better than a pie chart? What does this mean for you? Like, how can you use this information? So then it really helped to develop different visualization at different levels. And so, yeah, as I said, completed this in pre-district and is currently being scaled up nationally. I can show briefly how this looks like. On mWater, when we build this originally, so we have now, like, mWater allows to build customized data visualization, as we were talking before, and quite interactive ones. So we build this console, which has an introduction for the government. It has its logo, so immediately the government feels like that they own the data set. And then we have different data visualizations at different level. So from kind of a coverage level, very rapid information with a high level map as well, which the government can use at national level for quick decision, to a more detailed information about the service levels. All of these can be filtered into specific districts. So if I select one in particular, the data will be filtered to that particular district. So in this case, we looked at service levels, so functionality of the services, water quality. So as we're saying, we tested E. coli in all the water supply, so you can track the water quality service risks, microbiological risk in the different water supply. We have seasonality, we have continuity of supply, and then we try to build a service level ladder similar to SDGs, combining all this information. Then you have more detailed information into a different tab, which might be used maybe by a local government to do planning. And that's where you have information about your specific components. So your sources, your tanks. So you're looking at the functionality, you're looking at the size so that you know what exactly, how much it will cost to replace those ones that are broken, the pipes, etc. Pumps, etc. So this is just to give you an idea of how you can use mWater, going from like a very detailed information about an asset to actually build a view of the overall country as well, of service levels in the overall country. This is what I wanted to share about our experience. I just want maybe to reply to Karen's question about water quality. On mWater, we've built also a console which allows for automatic analysis of the water quality results compared to WHO standards and national standards as well. So it's been done in terms of national standards for a set number of countries, but this can be added to this. This was also done to analyze the results of our own internal water quality testing against our country program standards. So this console allows for interactive, immediate comparison of the results against the standards, and it highlights where there are issues about non-compliance of testing and also the results being compliant with the standard. So this is kind of partially being used. Probably some improvements could be done to this to make it more useful. It would be great to maybe discuss other opportunities of collaboration maybe on this. Now, I'll stop here and pass over now to Tim Davis, who will present WaterAid Australian's experience.
Can I just ask another burning question?
Sure.
I really see the relevance of the sorts of data that you're generating now to understand, in particular in light of COVID, how to target your interventions, given that WASH is such a critical part of maintaining, keeping people healthy, basically. Are you guys engaging with the data that you're collecting, particularly to strategically target areas that don't have enough coverage, both in Pakistan and from the global perspective in light of COVID right now with this data? For me, it seems like I would guess you are, but I thought I'd ask anyway.
I think I can maybe step in and answer that. Yeah, there's depending on the country, there's quite a lot of data available that can be harnessed and used to work with local government on the response for COVID as well. So we've found that quite useful in a number of places. But then often it's quite specific. So for example, COVID-19 data requires a lot of information on things like infection prevention and control in healthcare facilities. So there's been quite a big response around that in several countries where, working with local government to collect more data and actioning that data in terms of improving the situation, whether it be like more hand washing stations in critical care areas in healthcare facilities, or yeah, there's probably many examples depending on the country, but that would just be a few examples from places like definitely Timor-Leste has responded in that way. Same with WaterAid Cambodia as well.
Yeah, and just to add on that, Karen, in Bangladesh during COVID, they developed the tools and they trained their community volunteers, so who collect data on behalf of them. In some cases, this is directly on through mobile phone gadgets. In other cases, it's like they collect information and they are connected through WhatsApp and other means, so that informs the staff in the office are working from home, that enter the data in mWater, and then everything is on your portal to analyze and to aggregate results for you. So definitely in COVID, the data collection has been happening even in Pakistan. We engage some other a firm also maintaining the SOPs of the government and the WHO, but data has been collected. But this platform allows you to collect data by face to face, by having data entry in the office. If you have data on WhatsApp or through images or in any other mean. Yeah.
I guess I'm responding to information that I received where I thought that confinement or lockdown or whatever it's called in your countries is a lot more difficult for people because of not having adequate water for hygiene purposes, and that was creating more than actually access to food. A lot of times it's access to water that prevents people from staying home. So for me, it would, just based on what you've shared, it would be really interesting to kind of approach this from understanding the data differently to address the hygiene, the basic hygiene, and respond to that in a kind of a targeted way. I see the potential. It's kind of exciting. That it was just a thought. I don't know. It sounds like, Tim, you guys are actually doing quite a bit of that, and also kind of managing the situation, Sabir, so that there's less risk with contamination and so that was just my thought. Thank you for sharing. I'll stop.
Okay, thanks. I might continue then with a bit on WaterAid Australia's experiences. There's many experiences, but tonight I'll only share one case study from Papua New Guinea. Essentially, we've been working in Papua New Guinea since 2004. I've actually done this work that I'll be presenting today in my role as the M&E technical advisor to the National Department of Planning and Monitoring. But there's a lot of crossover with the work with WaterAid as well. So basically, Papua New Guinea is quite a challenging place. It's got very low coverage of basic services for wash. So, only 41% of the population have access to SDG basic drinking water. Sanitation's only 13% basic coverage for the country, and hygiene as well is only 28%. So 87% of the population live in rural areas, and it's very dispersed. There's poor roads and infrastructure, and it's hard to get around, making it quite expensive as well. So naturally, there's not very much data to support planning at national level, but then also at subnational level as well. So essentially, PNG developed the first national wash policy in 2015, and there's targets to achieve by 2030. They're a bit lower than the SDGs because we're starting from a very low base. But one of the key objectives of the WASH policy is to establish a national management information system to drive coordination at all levels and begin to have data and evidence for planning, financing, and driving more coordination and accountability between different sectors and stakeholders at all levels. Basically, if you point to a place on a map of Papua New Guinea, there's a chance that there won't be very much data associated with that. So it's extremely big challenge that really holds back the country and investments as well. Yeah, Petri, if we could move on to the next slide, please. So to do this, it's quite an ambitious undertaking. We've been working for the last really 2 years or so with the Department of National Planning and Monitoring and others as well to implement this 5-phase process to really institutionalise and then roll out this system across the country. Pretty early on, the government of Papua New Guinea adopted mWater as their chosen platform for the national MIS. But it was like quite a big process to get there. So first of all, you know, we in phase 1, we really documented what was happening across the country, what tools people were using, how data was being collected, managed and used across the country. And from you know, starting from the district level up to provinces, all the way to national level. So there's 89 districts across the country, so it's quite big and remote, and yeah, you know, even accessing the internet in some places is difficult as well. So from that, we needed a suitable set of indicators to guide the WASH sector, looking at like decision makers from at all levels. So you know, at national level, the decision makers, they're interested in accountability towards like the WASH policy, international obligations like the SDGs as well, and then, you know, budgetary decisions, debates in Parliament and things like this to achieve the policy objectives. So, you know, like the driver for national monitoring often comes from the top. There's often a minister or a decision maker that's asking, you know, I need this data, where's this data? And then often the data doesn't exist, or there's not enough information, or it's the indicators aren't fit for purpose. So it's a big process. It's not something that can be implemented overnight. So phase 2 was this long process of consultation with stakeholders and technical working groups at national level to establish appropriate indicators for national level, but then also meeting the decision-making needs at local level, where people are making, they need data to drive their service delivery arrangements at sub-national level. So, you know, they need to know like which village has access to what water supply, or what the sanitation status is of certain areas, so on and so forth. Same for schools and health clinics as well. So the indicators have to meet all of those needs, and then are like aggregated from the bottom all the way to the top, so you get a national picture of what's going on. To operationalize all of that, essentially there is an M&E framework to guide the sector in terms of roles and responsibilities, who should collect data, when, how, who will finance it, all of those things. So it's quite a process to bring together. And then often people tend to jump straight to phase 4, which is establishing the MIS, because everyone's mind kind of goes straight to like, we want to see the data. But actually getting these first 3 phases right is usually the most important factor. The MIS, why it's important, ultimately it's a way to visualize and use the data itself. And then of course, the training and capacity needs and rollout across the country, training public servants, training civil society, and having mechanisms for people to contribute data to the system as well. Thanks, Petri. All right, so I'm going to I'll show you the MIS in a minute. It might be best just to do a quick live overview. But it started off as a process between led by the National Department of Planning and Monitoring, and there's like a a transitional unit in there called the PMU, the Program Management Unit for WASH. So they're kind of at national level, they're responsible for, you know, implementing the WASH policy and rolling out the WASH policy across the country. So initially, there's a core group of stakeholders, so, you know, WaterAid, UNICEF and the EU, involved in kind of setting up this arrangement, noting that there's many people doing service delivery across the country and creating a common platform for people to contribute data to, which was mWater, of course. So, I mean, data is continually flowing into the MIS. You know, we're building a picture of the country over time, rather than like one-off big data collection events. People are contributing data through regular work, and that includes the government and NGOs and churches, private sector as well. So, you know, just as of today, there's like 1,350 communities, 666 schools, healthcare facilities is probably the best picture of the country that we have at the moment for healthcare facilities, because it's very rural, remember. And then, you know, like contributing organisations like the National Department of Health, Education, and so on and so forth. There's many people across the country contributing data. For everyone across the country has access to the system and the appropriate training and capacity to use it. Yeah, I'll share my screen now and show you. Yeah. All right. Here we go. Can people see that? Hang on, I'm just going to shift screen one. Cool.
We can see you.
Is that visible for everyone? You can?
It's coming.
Oh, maybe it's down here.
Not yet.
Not yet. Wouldn't you know it? You share. Here we go. This will do it. Is that better?
No, we can see only blank screen. I mean the not the
screen two. Ah, there you go. Is that better?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry about that. I've got 3 screens here. My laptop was okay. So this is it essentially. You have all the tabs across the top, linking you to different sectors, I suppose. Like, you know, first of all, there's like an instructions page that kind of outlines about the WASH policy itself, how to get started. You know, like there's a whole bunch of systems and processes that to register and be involved. It's like an official government system. Then there's like a document library where you can essentially download key sector documents, like and planning documents and guidance, things like that. And then, of course, like we have community WASH, so a database for rural communities. And I show it like it's based on all the key nationally agreed indicators. You know, this is an example from the data collected, 30% access to improved water at the moment. And if you zoom down on the communities here, you can see, yeah, basically the purpose is like if you're making planning decisions and developing these district level plans, then you prioritize areas in most need. So, for example, these communities here in red, they're using surface water as their primary water source. I won't go through like all the indicators or anything, just like give you a bit of a taste. You know, like schools, for example, as well. All this is based on the SDGs. So, and you know, like National Department of Education and others, of course, use this system as well. It does talk to the education MIS. And then you can see, like, for example, the service levels here. So you've got the SDGs, and then, you know, for example, as per your district, you can see these schools in orange, they don't have a water source at the moment, or they're using an unimproved one. So in terms of planning decisions and where to allocate resources and finance, you know, we're trying to work with the decision makers to actually use information to drive where to invest and where to work. I might stop there. Is there any questions? I mean, there's lots of information here, like healthcare facilities the same. There's plenty of information there. Any questions?
So how often does this data get updated, or is that depending on the user and what they've got available?
Yeah, I mean, so it's basically the way that the WASH policy is rolled out is like through development of 5-year WASH plans, WASH investment plans at district level. So when new districts are doing that, they'll do a big data collection and incorporate that data. But then otherwise it's contributed on like a project basis. So when people are undertaking a project, there's like a requirement that you'll register your project with the government and contribute data that way to the system. So anyone that's doing service delivery technically should be contributing to this process.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. I think that was it from WaterAid tonight, actually. That was the last slide.
It's really impressive. There's so much going on. And just to have a glimpse into a small piece of it, it's pretty mind-blowing, actually. It's really incredible.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, yeah, there is a lot happening. Like we've been working with mWater since 2013, so it is it's amazing to see the WASH, like the shift towards these type of this system, and also using the information for more data-driven and evidence-based decision making as well. It's really key to meet and get towards the SDGs as well.
Good. Thank you, Tim. Yeah, I guess so. We ended with our sessions. Maybe if there are no more questions or comment, we can finish.
I was wondering,
over
actually,
to you, Karen. Yeah.
Tim, one last question. Do you guys work with the Pacific Water and Wastewater Association? I'm just curious. It just seems like they would be a good partner. I mean, just the amount of partnerships I think that must go into these initiatives is tremendous, from a local to a more regional and international level. But them in particular, I feel like they would be a great strategic alliance.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we haven't really done like a project with them, but we talk to them at a high level to coordinate, especially around events and things like that. So, but there's lots of opportunities as well. Like the Pacific definitely needs a lot of assistance and collaboration in this area, like because we're working with like small island states that are with dispersed populations and poor data, and yeah, the workforce in many parts of the Pacific it's very challenging, especially PNG.
Great. I've pretty much asked all my questions. I mean, the only last thing I would ask is where next? Where do you guys see this all going next? What does the next step look like for you as you grow and develop this huge initiative, both for WaterAid and for mWater? And that's about it, I think.
Should we take a question from Fabian first to respond this? Yeah.
Hello, yeah, I can pop in with a question. Thank you for a very interesting presentation. I'm just catching the tail end of this right now. Can everyone hear me all right?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Wonderful.
Fabian. Welcome.
So please excuse me if this was covered earlier in the presentation, but I'm very interested in hearing how WaterAid ended up going to mWater and the choices involved in picking this open source platform.
Thank you so much, Fabian. Yes, we tried to cover this, how we ended up working with mWater, and I mentioned in my presentation that more than 40 different platforms we reviewed in 2020, 12 and 13. And finally, we ended with mWater going forward. It came on our criteria and also a platform where both parties, we agree that we will be supporting each other, sharing knowledge and experiences, and also obviously customizing of the features of mWater, and then supporting our business as usual going forward. Yeah, and we also anticipate that looking at the current experience of last 4 and 5 years, more than 5 years, obviously, we foresee that the more new developments and innovations in mWater, and also building new developments based on your demand and need, that is something that makes this partnership and this ways of working more impressive. For example, we are trying that how these systems support our business as usual, obviously going forward, and aiming for reaching everyone everywhere with wash accesses in 2030, and then working together with the sector, and then looking at our internal processes of our trade-off and the core business model in different countries and region, and then supporting working with the local government, and the experience shared by Ellen. So Ellen can also comment how she's looking forward, as also asked by Karen, and that it can also supplement your question. Ellen, do you want to add anything?
Sure, thanks, Sabir. So, so kind of answering both questions. And yes, we look forward kind of continuing to work using mWater to demonstrate within certain local governments or utilities how better data management to inform better planning can be used. So we will continue to use mWater as a kind of demonstration platform as well, but also in some countries this can become a national kind of scale up management information system, like what we've been doing in Myanmar. And another point, what we really look forward is also continuing to kind of roll out or scale up some of the initiatives that maybe are being done in some countries. For example, washing health center facilities, I was mentioning a few times. You know, we have some really good surveys on that in some countries, you know, and some of these are consistent with WHO or UNICEF indicator standards that they require, or surveys that they require. So the idea is to try and make these kind of uniform data collection tools that then can be also aggregated for a kind of global, to support global monitoring as well. So there's both kind of the use it for local level district demonstration to then scale up a national, strengthening the national monitoring processes and really using the data to inform planning and budgeting, but also looking more at a global perspective. How do we share best practices and tools and surveys and methodologies to track progress? So kind of those two aspects, I would say.
Thank you both for that. Very interesting. I'll be downloading the recording and making sure I catch all of it as soon as possible.
Thank you.
I think one thing I'd also add is just I think having good evidence and data is core to achieving SDG 6. So the data is very valuable for advocacy as well, like influencing decision makers to work in certain areas and identifying knowledge gaps in the sector that, you know, we all need to fill together, work towards. So yeah, it is really key to having that and having cohesive messaging and supporting that as well.
Thanks, Tim. Over to Karen.
With that, I just, if there are no further questions, want to thank, or no further closing thoughts from our panelists. Just want to thank everybody for the time and for the incredible amount of information and frankly, inspiration about what can be done and what is being done and the way forward. And I hope that we can all work to collaborate with you and continue to support this work. It's really great. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Karen, for giving this opportunity and this platform. Yeah, I think this is a nice way to connect and collaborate. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thanks, Patty,
Very much.
Tim, and Ellen. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. This has been great.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for these
Impressive.
interesting presentations.